Hello, good evening, and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Ed McCullough. Our guest this evening is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is a candidate for mayor of Hilton Head Island. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ed. I know you've tried to get me on here for a long time. It's nice to finally be here talking to you.
Well, you know what? I'm going to jump right into a little bit of your background, which is the reason I've been begging you to come over here for the last 8 years, and that is your involvement with Aldbrass. You are an architect, and you have been involved in a Frank Lloyd Wright designed project up in Yemassee, would they call it? Yemassee, called Aldbrass, where the plans were in place but never fully executed or brought to fruition, purchased by Joel Silver, the movie magnate, Bad Boys and a bunch of other blockbusters that everybody knows. And you get to be the guy entrusted, with this, and I'm going to call it a sacred trust of bringing a Frank Lloyd Wright design into reality, into manifestation. I just think it's an awesome place to be. You're a lucky guy.
I am. I truly am. It was just an opportunity that has grown. It has been now more than 20 years.
Wow.
Since I started working up there, shortly after Joel Silver purchased the property, which was in near ruin when he bought it. And we were very fortunate, South Carolina was very fortunate that someone like that came along and virtually saved something that was disappearing before our eyes.
Truly a labor of love, truly a labor of significant personal monetary investment. And I'm fascinated. How did you get to be the guy?
Well, like
of all the guys out there, how did you get to be the guy?
Be at the right place at the right time is the best thing in life. And that's exactly what happened. I had an opportunity. I had an association with a friend that had studied at the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture who was here, had only been here for a short time, and they needed someone to survey the property. And he brought me into the project, and when he left, I inherited all of it and have been
working on it for 20 years.
Yes. Now, Eric Lloyd Wright, who's the grandson of Frank Lloyd Wright, is the architect of record, and that makes a nice arrangement with Taliesin for access to all of the information, all of the original drawings, plans, letters, notes. It's fascinating. I get to read little comments that Wright wrote on the margins of drawings that I have in my office. And as time develops that I've understood this project and the relationship with the original owner, Lee Stevens and Wright, these little notes take on new meaning. It's really fascinating.
And really, honestly, when you talk about that process, I have this sense of like Frank Lloyd Wright, like looking over your shoulder, or you're reading little anecdotes. Do you ever have dreams about the guy?
Well, I don't know that I have dreams. I don't, but I do recognize the obligation, and I do get that sense of being in his head a little bit. And especially when I talk to Eric, who's not that actively involved anymore and hasn't been for a long time. But when we talk about things, and we would talk about very minute little arrangements and relationships in the project, he would say, grandfather liked certain things. And so you got into more than the design element. You got into the emotional importance of what Wright meant for this to be and how it should relate, how people should sit near a fireplace and the importance of a fireplace to a person's seating. And those things are wonderful.
Thought to every minute detail.
Everything.
And so really, let's just take that process, if you will, and transfer it, if we can, over to the prospect of mayor of Hilton Head Island. And let's go back to the origins of Hilton Head. And let's go back to Charles Fraser. And I remember a story about Charles Fraser. His father says, travel the world, go look where folks hang out in the kind of place that you would like this to become, and come back and tell me what you find. And legend has it he came home and he said, it's one word, it's trees. And so you have this vision, you have this history, you have this significant personality. How important is it as the prospective mayor that you understand those origins and your sacred trust as the steward of that vision?
Well, I think it's key for me. My experience in design and planning, and it was the appeal of what Charles Fraser was doing here that partly brought me here. I grew up on the East Coast and spent a lot of time in this area before I moved after school, University of Tennessee, to Aspen, Colorado, where I lived for 11 years. And I lived in an area that was a small community. It was, design was very important. It was fairly landlocked by being surrounded by Forest Service, much like we're surrounded by the ocean. And a lot of the similar issues that go on here. So it kind of set me up for what this community was about. The appeal here, of course, was what Charles Fraser was doing. And it was quite a challenge that he came up with, and we know the history, and we know the legacies, and I respect all that. And I think that what I look at now as an architect and as a person involved on the planning of this town for the 23 plus years that I've been here, is to leverage from those legacies, understand that, understand what is the appeal for all of us that have moved here, visited here, call this home or second home, and that is to respect the legacy of what brought the experience.
What brought us all here in the first place.
The experience of Hilton Head Island is the magic. I think that's the magic. And understanding that, you can't always put that into words, and it's not just the beach, and it's not just the trees, and it's not just the birds, and it's not just
total
physical things that you can point to, but that experience is in our soul, and that's what I think is the magic of Hilton Head, has been, and what we all want to capture, what we want to keep the same, but the same doesn't always stay.
Of keeping it the same, and in terms of preservation of the magic in the context of becoming mayor and taking care of the job at hand, there always seems to be something of a conflict, but perhaps a false conflict between what I will call economic development and the preservation of the magic. How do you synthesize those two in such a way that it serves both masters without hurting either one?
Well, they're connected. Like all things, everything is connected. The interrelationship of the economic sustainability of this island reaches out to all of the issues that we talk about, including the preservation of our natural resources. You know, one of the reasons that we've been successful and have that magic that has drawn many of us to come to call this home has been that preservation of natural resources. Well, with a successful community of people investing and living here, we have this economic engine that has been driven and led largely because of that preservation of natural resources. Now, how does all that connect? I think when you start to look at the whole fabric of the economic sustainability of this island, you'll see, even for those that are very comfortably retired and life is wonderful, I've got my circle of friends in my wonderful neighborhood,
and I
don't bother me with issues.
Come outside the plantation. Well, once a week I got to go to the supermarket.
The truth is that the economic success of this island affects everyone, and it affects them directly by many things. Some of those things is what we call the quality of life, and quality of life can be measured by different ways for different folks. I think one of the unique things that I would like to see further enrichment of is our cultural resources, our performing arts. I think arts, I come from a family of arts. I'm considered an artist in some respect as an architect. I think it's important, it enriches our lives, and I think everyone on this island benefits greatly from our cultural resources. Those can be enhanced, I think, by more successful economic development. It's an offshoot. If we lived in a town of 36, 38,000 people without the 2 million visitors that bring in $1 billion in spending to this island, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we have here. So that success brings opportunity for the residents and the part-time residents and retirees. Now, the other part of this formula for all of us that own any property here, and that's whether you're retired and it's going to go on to your children or some path, is that that's an